the last thing was the identification rules.
Yes.
Tell me more about that.
Okay, yeah, that's the most challenging part in a 1031 because you have to identify what you're going to buy. So people think, well, if I'm in contract with something, that's identified. That's not technically accurate. There is a form that the taxpayer needs to complete by midnight and have it sent in by midnight of the 45th day. Okay, being in contract does not mean that you have properly identified the 1031 property.
Right, okay.
Okay, so I like to say there's the technical and then there's the practical. The technical is the form that you're going to fill out. So as a qualified intermediary, when we're dealing with your clients, they're going to get a form. Okay, and on that form, you know, it says, okay, it's got lines on it. It says, and our documents will say the property you sold, and then your 45th day is this date, your 180th day is this date, and there's blank lines going, okay, what's the address of the property? So you're going to write down the address, the city, and the state, okay? Now, there's 3 identification rules, so because that's what makes the ID a little bit more challenging, because people get confused with the rules.
Okay,
all right?
What are those?
The first rule is the 3 property rule, so basically you're limited to 3 addresses.
3 addresses.
But you're not limited to the dollar amount for each and every one of those properties that you're putting on the list. Okay? So, but people go, well, God, I really want to have some more properties to identify. Why can't I identify more than 3? Well, technically you can. But, all right, but be very careful. Now you're out of the 3 property rule and you're into what's known as the 200% rule.
Oh, got it.
So each rule, if you think about it, as I'm going to explain it, is going to default to the next rule. So you start off with the 3 property rule. If you want to identify 4 or more properties, now you're going to default to the next rule, which is the 200% rule. Another way of looking at the 200% rule, think of it as the 2 times rule. Okay, because when you list 4, 5, 6, 10, 20 properties, the values of each one of those properties, after you've added them all up, cannot exceed 2 times your sale price.
Okay.
So think of it from a practical perspective now. I sell $1 million property here in Redondo Beach. Okay, is there still $1 million property in Redondo? $1.5 million, 2, 3.
Maybe not multi-units.
Yeah. A tear down 2-bedroom, 1-bath, 1,100 square foot house. Okay, so you identify. So you sell, say, $1 million house, because this is easy for the math.
Yeah.
If I intend as an investor to reinvest in the South Bay, what's the likelihood of me being able to identify 4 or more properties that are not going to exceed $2 million? Right. I'm saying it's slim to none.
Right.
But if I sell here in Redondo Beach and I decide that I want to diversify into other parts of the country. So maybe I want to buy a single family rental in Arkansas, you know, or Alabama or Florida or North Carolina, Tennessee, Texas. Well, if you're buying single family rentals in those regions, prices can be as low as $100,000, you know, and such. So if they're in the $100,000, $150,000 range, could you now fit under the 200% rule? Sure. So to me, what's going to dictate the rule the taxpayer is going to be able to use successfully in their exchange is how much you're selling for and where you intend to buy. So if I see somebody that's selling for a small amount and they're going to stay in the same area, I'm going to tell them, you're in the 3 property rule. Game over. You're not going in anything else. Because if you're not careful and you identify 4 or more properties, but the values exceed 2 times the sale price, now you're defaulting into the 3rd and final rule.
What's that one?
The 95% rule, which says basically unlimited properties, unlimited dollar amount. Now don't get excited, because you have to close on 95% of the aggregate value of all the properties you've identified. So theoretically and practically, you have to buy everything on that list.
So anything you identify, you got to buy it.
Exactly. So you do not want to go to the 95% rule.
Okay.
Now, another component to the identification, which I find is interesting, because I'll hear people, you know, from time to time in conversation, they'll go, well, my friend told me that all I need to do is just put addresses on this piece of paper, but I can buy whatever I want. I said, no, you can't.
Yeah.
See, when you fill out the ID form, those are the properties that you can only buy in a 1031. You cannot change your list after the 45th day.
Yeah.
So most people doing an exchange aren't going to fill out the ID form until they get closer to the
Until right
45th
towards
day.
the end, yeah.
Because hopefully by that point, you're already in contract with the property or properties that you're going to close on.
Okay.
That's what that's the ideal situation, that
Right.
you're not just doing a Hail Mary out there going, oh, I'm going to try to see if I can get these 3 properties. Here's my list on the 45th day. And then now you go out there and you start making your offers and you go, oh, couldn't get that offer accepted. Oh, it's gone. So
Right.
now what do? You're trapped.
Right.
So,
Yeah, they can buy that 4th property, but not through the exchange, right?
well, not with the exchange money
Yeah.
either, because we're holding the money.
Exactly.
See, so there's a lot of intricacies in the exchange. So I've had situations where somebody says, well, we just released, they've identified property, so they did the formal ID, then they're past the 45th day, they go, okay, we're going to pay the tax, we don't care, but I've got property 4 over here that I'm closing on, I need you to release our money. We cannot release the money until day 181 because they have formally identified properties. So
Oh,
when you
really?
think about a 1031,
Wow.
it's not, this is a very technical transaction because you're dealing with a tax code and you have to comply with everything. So if somebody is on the fence and they're thinking, well, I don't see anything I'm going to want, then when you get to the 45th day, you have to make a decision. If you don't identify any properties, on day 46, the exchange is over because you cannot identify beyond that, then we can release your money.
So it's just if you identify something, then
Correct.
you're in for the 100
Yeah,
days.
yes, exactly. Because they technically have identified properties.